After Poppy Playtime Chapter 3's release, I thought it could only get better. They finally had an idea of what they wanted to do with the chapter, and the game going forward in general. Then when we got more and more news on Chapter 4, I was slowly starting to get worried. It looked extremely congested, 3 whole villains plus another yet to be revealed, with some top hat, until the final gameplay trailer release showing the character Doey the Dough Man, even though he got leaked by Walmart like a week before. After we redirect the red smoke and start going down deeper into the abyss, exploring the prison and meeting friendly faces and evil toys along the way, with that, is Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 even good? Kinda. Look, it may be me going in with god levels of expectations, but I left the game feeling extremely underwhelmed. All my predictions of characters being left with no time to develop because Mob crammed in all the monsters that they could. This time we go against the entire computer system run by the Doctor, Harley Sawyer, who created all the experiments that go against us and his little pet Yarnaby, and a dinosaur called Pianosaurus, and all the smiling critters that have now got new reskins labelled Nightmare Critters, and last to be released, Doey the Dough. You see the problem here? I think in general this just feels like the Spider-Man 3 of the Poppy Playtime franchise. The overuse of too many enemies results in the plot of the chapter not being able to develop story-wise, leaving parts feeling a little dry. Another genuine problem I have is that the game is riddled with bugs. There are multiple sections of parts being game breaking. Like on my first playthrough, I experienced a bug where when the right hand gets deactivated, the flashlight just doesn't turn on, making the Doctor section nearly impossible to complete. Also on my second playthrough, the final boss kept bugging out with random things like getting stuck behind barbed wire, meaning I had to reload the game. I kept jumping in the air like a frog out of control for some reason, so I had to reload again. And Doey got stuck in the ground and wouldn't move until he went flying up onto that little tower thing. With all that out the way, let's begin with Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. We begin with a really well animated sequence of a Doey the Dough Man commercial, cutting to a kid getting a Doey the Dough Man toy, as well as an invitation to the Playtime Co. toy factory, where for some reason when he's there, he drops his toy and goes God of War diving into the vat of dough that makes Doey. It's apparent the textures have changed a bit from last time, particularly the lighting. People believing it is weaker this time compared to Chapter 3. However, the graphics on everything still look amazing. But I can't lie when I say the lighting took a while for me to get used to. I'm not necessarily saying it does not look as good, or if not better. It just reminded me of a lot of a Switch, kind of like the transition from Stardust Crusaders to Diamondism Great Ball. Both look great, but the juxtaposition really surprised me. We cut back to our Ban Ban art ending of us going down an elevator, deeper into the factory and closer to the belly of the beast. Venturing on, we find piles upon piles of mangled corpses of all sorts, like smiling critters, nightmare critters, well, just kind of that. I am honestly glad we're back with some of the most grimmest VHS tapes you'll see in any of these games, of the guards saying all the toys are crying and screaming for their parents, locked deep underground, left for dead by the world. It took me a minute to realise that we're talking about kids turned into monsters. I'll be honest, when it happened I said, why did they just say toy? And then it clicked to me, and right from the get-go it shows that there is a massive transition from the earlier ones, like the Joker cameo takes, like Jacksepticeye and Eli Roth, director of Hostel for some reason. leaked chapter 5 scene, Kissy Missy gets her face cut off by a lawnmower. But now it's just straight to the point. Anyway, we enter a train compartment to get to the prison. Then we get our first introduction to what would be the game's best antagonist.
Now what's this? Do I feel something squirming its way beneath my skin? An invasive foreign little germ. After all this time?
This is the Doctor. A computer system that's basically just GLaDOS, but he sounds like Kratos. He's able to release red smoke, making you wonder what exactly was the whole point of doing what we did in Chapter 3. The gas is still down here, so what exactly was the goal? But he can also lock and shut doors, I guess. If you're looking on a deeper level, the Doctor is Dr. Harley Sawyer, who started at Playtime Co. under Elliot Ludwig's The Young Minds programme. But after Ludwig sees how much of a, in British slang, massive knob Sawyer is, he kicked him out. Oddly enough, Sawyer continued on in the company and Elliot Ludwig went missing. Anyway, after Sawyer kept messing up because all his experiments kept killing visitors, Leif Pierre gets angry about this and puts Sawyer into the computer system as a punishment, because since they knew he was needed, they couldn't feed him to Boxy Boo. Continuing through, we get ambushed by little Huggy Wuggy of various colours and nightmare critters. Also, they've changed up the gameplay a bit. When you're fighting the smaller creatures like nightmare critters, you have a health bar, so you can take a certain amount of damage instead of just immediately dying like in Chapter 3. After a while, the Doctor calls off all the creatures and we finally get a new red hand, which comes with a new flashlight as well. We need this new flashlight because, oddly enough, during the school section our old one burnt out. Also, it's needed because they made the flare gun this time close to useless when it comes to light source. In the start, they just kind of roll around and don't provide any light sources that can be used. However, in later fights, they are essential. Further into the prison, the Doctor releases red smoke into a cell block, so we have to break into the security room. There's also a cutout of a future character called Yarnaby, and I'm going to be so dead ass, this is not at all what I expected Yarnaby to sound like.
The name's Yarnaby. Would you wanna be my friend?
No!
I always imagined him sounding like how the Candy Cat cutout from Chapter 2 sounds like. He just sounds like SML Iggy.
Iggy!
Yeah!
Carrying on, we enter a hallway littered with a bunch of rotting corpses, each with different levels of decay, basically just skeletons, either sat propped against a wall, laying dead like Walter White, some impaled on loose rods and sticks in the path. I think the use of actual bodies around the area gives the game a really grim undertone, but it should not be seen as a crutch for horror. There's very little use of horror in this chapter. Some of the designs are on the border of scary, but Yarnaby is just his base toy design with very little changes, besides, the big fucking mouth. Just take someone like Catnap, for example, a small little cute purple cat that they then took the big gaping voids and piercing white eyes, hiding them in them like caves. They then also took the cattail and then gave it a little lanky body on the verge of starvation, bones forcing their way out of his sewn together skin, and then put it in a landscape that fits in a location like Home Sweet Home where it's like bloody massive. Compare that to someone like Yarnaby, and as funny as he looks, that is the problem, it just looks funny. How anybody feels about these characters, I have no idea. But I wish there was some sign that he's been here for a long time, like being skinny or even dirty or anything like what they did with Catnap. Anyway, a jail door opens and Yarnaby dashes through and bashes at the protective glass and lurks back into the darkness in defeat. Kind of like that one scene in Indigo Park. To carry on, we have to find a key card. To do so, we have to sneak past Yarnaby, who is bouncing around the place, ripping everything to shreds. A mysterious colourful hand throws a random flare he's got into the corner, distracting Yarnaby from you and giving you just enough time to slip into a vent with him grabbing at you erratically through the little vent thing we crawl through. But he's extremely persistent, as in less than a second later he chases us again and we escape for another vent. We find our next cutout of a dinosaur called Pianosaurus, who's a toy dino, if the name doesn't indicate that.
Hello, I'm Pianosaurus. I used to be in a band, then the asteroid hit.
That sounds like he would host a Masked Singer or some shit like that by the way he sounds. Also, I would have imagined him sounding how Yarnaby sounds in the cutout. We do one of those Outlast crawls across like a thin cut off wall and immediately fall into the void Pianosaurus inhibits. He dashes towards us but gets dragged back and killed. On a deeper level, this is the saddest I've been at this game. He had such a cool design for a character and I was hoping he would be more utilised in the chapter. However, we are then introduced to Doey, who is modelled in a really cool way actually. He looks as if he was made using rolled into a ball clay, and it does better than Bam Bam does, which is not a high bar to set, but like... He also has the godlike 100% belly fat dad bod build. Anyway, we follow him around the prison courtyard. We continue on towards a supposed sanctuary randomly though. We get pulled into a wall by Kissy, who has certainly seen better days. Then a horrific acnid, mechanical looking creature lurks in the shadows, walks past ominously, as if it is following us. So far, to my knowledge, this is the best look we've had at 1006, or the prototype, and we finally have our confirmation that the prototype has been following us from behind this entire game. From what we've seen, I think this is the best design for any monster I've seen in a while, especially for Poppy Playtime. Scuttling around, hopefully. The rest of the body matches the silhouette in its horrific design, because this is the scariest thing we see all chapter. You can also tell Kissy's been through it. Half her face fur is gone, her arm is in a sling and she looks horrifically burnt. I beg that this means the prototype has one arm that's just a flamethrower, because that would just go absolutely tough. Anyway, with Kissy and Poppy on our side, we make our way to the safe haven, and we get to see all the little smiling critters friendly, chilling with you, playing games. It's genuinely wholesome as hell. Sure do hope nothing happens to them. Doey and Poppy tell us to get an Omega hand or an Omni hand, like this is some ban stuff. From the doctor to power a generator to do something that's not clear. And we're off. As soon as we finish our first puzzle, we get chased again by Yarnaby into a place ominously titled No Man's Land. We have to scan hand scanners that honestly take far too long while Yarnaby is hot on our trail. Mob also thought it would be a good idea to have him crawl through vents and pop up behind us at random times. I think it is really fun and can be effective at horror at points, because Yarnaby is faster than you, so you have to just barely squeeze through hiding spots at points where he can't reach us unless you make a noise. After doing all this, we begin our second chase, which is just about as underwhelming as the first. The only thing that this happens is he dies, so 1 like equals 1 prayer for Yarnaby. We continue on and finally see the Doctor again, who takes up part of this chapter. We go around doing small puzzles of destroying his organs, like going around dead bodies, getting name tags to enter a code and destroy his lungs. Then what I think is his heart, or his balls, I don't really know. He also makes us test our will as a chill MF, and makes us kill Simon Smoke to escape a room about to fill up with nightmare critters, so we have to kill it. I don't really know what would happen, because when we do this, the windows break anyway, so opening the door would just... I don't know, it's not worth questioning. We continue on with our newly equipped Omni hand back to Safe Haven to power up the generator. However, while we are doing so, the prototype starts to attack Safe Haven. So we have to turn on the generator and begin to blow stuff up on our way back to Doey. However, it turns out he's lost the prototype, and we both see in the distance we have to dash back through the mossy path back to Safe Haven, but we were too late. We enter and see all of the friendly, innocent little creatures just trying to live in safety away from all the hostility of the factory under the watch of Doey. But when us and Poppy show up, ignore the awful grammar, and try to challenge the prototype, causing everyone trying to live peaceful lives harm in hope of killing the prototype. Doey rightfully starts to get pissed off at us and tries to kill us, but after rubble hits him, his body changes and morphs, and the only cool part of this design is the 3 faces in his mouth. So a second ago, him talking to himself like he's bipolar or something, turns out he's 3 different children, which is kind of foreshadowed in his design through the 3 different hands coming together in the centre. We know one of them is Jack through a tape we can find where he kills his mom and dad after Playtime lock them in the room with him, possibly why he is the only one so desperate to get out the factory and go home, because he's the only one to have a family out there, but they're gone now and he was the one that killed them. The rest of the design is absolutely shocking. It's just some kind of lizard or salamander and it's not very scary. He chases us to a massive mining area and we have to freeze him under buzzsaws to cut him up. After doing it 3 times, we escape from the mine and continue where they grab us on a hydraulic press. We then freeze him and crush him like one of those YouTube videos where they use the crushed plastic and use the hydraulic press and like M&Ms and stuff. And he finally apologises to seeing his good personality one last time. I think out of the 4 antagonists in the game, Doey is by far the most developed out of all of them. We have a slow build-up of his character, progressively showing what he's like, and how all he has down here are his friends that count on him. The only thing keeping him together is his friends. So because all of his friends dying because of us, Doey's crash out is honestly fair enough, he has nothing left. Anyway, we continue on and find Kissy and Poppy hiding in a vent shaft, in which Poppy tries to find Ollie on the walkie-talkie. Bad news though, Ollie has been the prototype the entire time. Honestly, it's kind of the most obvious twist I've ever seen since the one in Security Breach Ruin. Why would there be what sounds like a 10-year-old child in the factory? At least in Ruin, it's like Gregory. In one of the endings, we see him down there. So it's actually kind of clever when Ruin does it. He would have to be a quite literal fetus when the Hour of Joy took place. So Poppy might just be a really daft person, I guess. Poppy runs away like a little pussy when she finds out the prototype is after her, and leaves us and Kissy to die to an explosion. We get down, Mr. President by Kissy. Boy, if I had a nickel. She grabs onto us, but unfortunately she's not able to do the Sonic Lost World thing, and her arm rips fully off, and unfortunately after everything she's been through, she is gone now, maybe? I don't know. We continue down even lower to the cave system, taking a wicked blow to the face. Continuing on, we make it to a farm of poppies. It looks like a marijuana farm for some reason, leading up to what looks like the factory we haven't seen since the start of chapter 3. To conclude the chapter, we pop in a tape and a new Leif Pierre tells us about the great security against the alarms, Blair, and a shadow of Kissy walks over looking disoriented, but then he bolts into the lights. I think this reveal was really effective as a build-up. There's been 2 moments in both chapters before where the lighting makes you believe Huggy's back, where the light in chapter 2, Barry's section, and getting dive bombed by Kissy in chapter 3. It's just a cool little motif to have. So when it's done the third time, you're expecting it to be Kissy again, but this time it's reversed and it's Huggy. And that was Poppy Playtime chapter 4, Safe Haven. What a mixed bag. I mean, like, sure, there's a lot of great things scattered through the chapter, but by the time we get there, we're about to explore these things. The chapter swoops it under the rug and moves to the next idea. The big problem the game has is that it went for quantity over quality, which is that exact same problem as chapter 2, because that just feels like a longer version of chapter 1, except it's just not being its own thing. And while 4 is bounds and leaps better than chapter 2 in every way, I do think large amounts of characters feel a lot more contained in chapter 2 through the separate games, like statues. I wish they elaborated on the Doctor a hell of a lot more than they did, considering he was the poster child. By moving Doey to another chapter, drawing it out more, they could have focused more on developing the Doctor instead of rushing to the next antagonist. I think, on the other hand, though, to talk about the positives, the visuals are amazing, the gameplay sticks as really fun, the puzzles are fairly challenging. I am officially smarter than a 5-year-old because this time I didn't have to watch YouTube to answer all the puzzles. This is still some of the best of the genre, and Doey has one of the greatest arcs in any of these mascot horror games. It's not as good as Catnaps, but still, he's a great character, honestly. And in all fairness, I'd say in my ranking, number 4 is chapter 2, number 3 is chapter 1, number 2 is chapter 4, and number 1 is chapter 3. That is the most confusing thing I've ever said. And thank you so much to everyone who has watched this video up to this point, and yeah, that's me done. See ya.